Hi, everybody. I'm here today to talk about my favorite books that I read in 2024. Before I get into the actual books, though, I do think it's fair to talk about the fact that I've been gone for quite a while and all of my old videos are gone. So if you're a return subscriber, you might be wondering, like, what's up? So basically, the reason why I've been gone for so long is that honestly, I just haven't been reading very much this year. In fact, I would say there's a certain element of hubris in even attempting a best of books video for me this year, because according to Goodreads, I only read about 15 books this year. I know that I must have read more than that because over the summer I was reading some books that I was not uploading to Goodreads, but honestly, I can't remember how many they were, so like, it wasn't that much more than 15 though. Let's just keep it at that. So yeah, I just haven't been reading very much, and so obviously I didn't feel super compelled to make videos about not reading because how boring is that? And honestly, I feel like in years previous, the fact that I wasn't reading very much would have really bothered me. But honestly, this year, I was just enjoying a lot of other things. I got really into a whole bunch of different hobbies. Got into cycling. I got into hiking a bunch. I got very into nature. So, like, found all of those activities nourishing for the soul, even though they did take some time away from reading. But I did still read some good books this year, and there's definitely some standouts I wanted to talk to people about. As far as why all the old videos are gone, this is harder for me to answer, and I don't know if I can answer it in a way that is both succinct and satisfying, so let me just try. Basically, I have been making videos on the internet about books since I was 22 years old, and I am now 29, going on 30. And there were definitely videos and ways that I presented information and ways that I presented books and talked about books that just would not be the way I did it now. And honestly, just didn't feel representative of who I am now. And I started to become more and more disconcerted by this idea of like a ghost version of yourself that just lived on the internet forever and ever, that people could interact with, make judgments about. It just started to feel more and more uncomfortable, and I just wanted a clean slate, and so I privated all of my old videos. They're not deleted; they could potentially see the light of day again, but I kind of doubt it. If I'm being honest, I'm enjoying the idea of a clean slate. I had some people reach out and comment and basically say that they missed the old videos. To that, I can just say I'm sorry, and hopefully, videos I make in the future are better content and make up for the loss of those old videos. I have been missing the channel. I have been missing making videos. I've been missing just the interaction with people, finding recommendations, sharing in the joy of literature, that type of thing. So I have been missing the channel, but I definitely think that going forward, when I make videos, I definitely think I want to have a different approach. I definitely don't feel like I want to review nearly every single book that I read. I kind of want to save the channel for making videos when I feel especially compelled to talk about a book or a subject. So, that's what I'm going to be doing going forward in the future. And all of these books that I'm about to talk about, I do feel so compelled to talk about. So let's just get into them. Before I get into them, I do just want to say I am very out of practice in terms of talking in front of a camera. And I have attempted this video a few times, and I have definitely learned my lesson that when you take a big break from filming, it definitely results in this being a lot harder. This is definitely a skill that develops with use. So, apologies if I am not maybe my old self, but I'm going to try my very best. So, the first book I want to talk about is The Friend by Sigrid Nunez. This is about a woman who is a writer living in New York, and her friend and literary mentor dies by suicide, leaving her to raise his large Great Dane, Apollo, in her one-bedroom Brooklyn apartment. And the blurb that I was given about this book is that basically she and this dog together confront their grief for this man. And on the one hand, yes, that is what this book is about, but it's also about so much more. And I think that just that premise maybe makes the book sound like it's going to be much more sentimental than it actually is. This book is about grief. It is about how animals grieve. It's about what we can learn from the way perhaps animals might grieve. Do they understand betrayal? Do they understand loss? It is about confronting this death. But it's also about a lot of artistic and philosophical ideas. It's about writing. It's about she has some pretty scathing critiques of like writing as an industry and writers. They're very interesting in this book. For example, at the very beginning of the book, there is a funeral that is held for this man, and a bunch of writers show up. And instead of using this opportunity to grieve for him or celebrate his life, instead they use it as an opportunity to gossip and network. And the narrator makes the point that if reading imparts empathy, as we're all told that it does, then perhaps writing takes away some of that empathy, which is just a kind of sharp piece of writing that's quite emblematic of the fun turns of phrase that you will find in this book about a myriad of different subjects. This book also deals with the fact that the man who committed suicide was quite the womanizer, and he saw no qualms or had no qualms with like sleeping with students and that type of thing. And this is also confronted in the book. This book makes a lot of references to like the novel Disgraced by J.M. Coetzee. And yeah, it's a really fascinating, intelligent book that presents all of its ideas without really any pretension, and also manages to make all of these subjects feel very fascinating and exciting to read on the page. It's not a particularly plot-focused book by any means, but at the same time, it manages in the end to pull off a narrative twist that left me feeling giddy and kind of demonstrated the optimism and compassion that underpins the whole narrative. So I really loved this book, and I would really recommend it. And yeah, if you were ever turned off by it because you thought it was just about a woman and a dog, and maybe that seemed kind of sentimental and mawkish, it is really so much more than just that premise. Another book that I absolutely loved this year was Soldier Sailor by Claire Kilroy. This is about a woman who calls herself Soldier, writing to her young son, who she calls Sailor, about the early years of raising him, and it is about the loss of identity in new motherhood, the experience of having your whole being change and your whole responsibility in life change to looking after a child, what that does to your psyche. It's about the fact that she is dealing with a husband who is not helpful, to say the least. All of the kind of domestic responsibilities fall on her, despite the fact that they considered themselves a modern couple. I don't think she was expecting that when they had this baby that they would revert into these types of gender stereotypes, and yet they have. And as she is dealing with the kind of challenges of raising a child, she runs across an old friend of hers, a man who is the primary caretaker for his children, and together they start to bond and remember their old lives before children. This book is about the challenges of new motherhood. It's about trying to find joy in new motherhood while also dealing with the seismic shift in identity that happens when you have a baby. And it is told in language that is raw and visceral. This book is bleak. I don't think it's a book that's going to make you want to have children when you get to the end of it. But that's not to say that it's, totally disparaging of the idea of parenthood. I mean, there's a lot of joy in this book as well, and love that you experience, but that joy and love is oftentimes hard fought for by the narrator. And it shows the kind of battles that young women and young mothers have to contend with. The language in this book is absolutely beautiful. Claire Kilroy, I believe, is a poet, and it really does show in her writing. I would say my only critique of this book, if I had to give it one, is that there are times when I found the metaphors just a little ham-fisted, but besides that, this is just a really gorgeous book. One of the things that I thought was especially well done was how well you could feel the experience of trying to do any task with a toddler. You felt as the reader how Sisyphean every single one of those tasks is. From trying to clean up the house, to trying to put the toddler in a car seat while they're throwing a fit. And you felt that frustration on a level that was so visceral and claustrophobic. And yeah, just really well handled. I really love this book and would highly recommend it. Though I would say that perhaps if you were a new mother yourself, approach the book with caution. Another book that I really love this year is On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. This is a book about a young man called Little Dog writing to his Vietnamese immigrant mother about his childhood, growing up with her as a young half Vietnamese child himself, and dealing with growing up as a young queer Vietnamese kid in New England. This book has a lot to do with a ill-fated relationship between him and the son of a tobacco farmer that he works for in the summers. This book is beautiful. The fact that he is writing it to his mother, who herself does not speak good enough English to be able to really read this book, allows the narrator to write to her with a kind of searing honesty that he would not be able to do otherwise. And this book is searingly honest. I think one of the things I was most impressed by with this book is how wide its view was. There's a lot of things that this book is tackling. Yes, it's a very intimate story about a young kid, a young man, in a very specific set of circumstances, and yet it manages to talk about a whole slew of issues, from class to race to sexuality, in a way that is still very focused on these characters. I'm going to read a passage of this book aloud because this is actually probably my favorite passage of any book that I read this year. And I keep returning to this bit of writing over and over again because I am just so impressed with how beautiful it is, how warm and compassionate it is, and I think it just shows the kind of thing you can expect when you pick up this book. So this is a part of the book where he is talking about his mother working in a nail salon, and the fact that at the nail salon, the manicurists were constantly apologizing to the clients, and he uses this to have a whole discussion about the way apologies and saying I'm sorry is used by people who work in the service industry or who are at the mercy of more powerful people in society. So it goes, the most common English word spoken in the nail salon was sorry. It was the one refrain for what it meant to work in the service of beauty. Again and again I watched as manicurists bowed over a hand or foot of a client, some young as 7, say, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, when they had done nothing wrong. I have seen workers, you included, apologize dozens of times throughout a 45-minute manicure, hoping to gain warm traction that would lead to the ultimate goal, a tip, only to say, sorry, anyway, when none was given. In the nail salon, sorry is a tool one uses to pander until the word itself becomes currency. It no longer merely apologizes, but insists, reminds, I'm here, right here, beneath you. It is the lowering of oneself so that the client feels right, superior, and charitable. In the nail salon, one's definition of sorry is deranged into a new word entirely, one that's charged and reused as both power and defacement at once. Being sorry pays. Being sorry, even or especially when one has no fault, is worth every self-deprecating syllable the mouth allows, because the mouth must eat. And yet it's not only so in the nail salon, Ma. In those tobacco fields, we said it. Lo siento, Manny would utter as he walked across Mr. Buford's field of vision. Lo siento, Rigo whispered as he reached to place a machete back on the wall where Buford sat ticking off numbers on a clipboard. Lo siento, I said to the boss, after missing a day when Lan had another schizophrenic attack and had shoved all her clothes into the oven, saying she had to get rid of the evidence. Lo siento, we said, when one day night arrived only to find the field half harvested, the tractor, its blown-out engine, sitting in the still dark. Lo siento, senor, each of us said as we walked past the truck with Buford sitting inside, blasting Hank Williams and staring at his withered crop, a palm-sized photo of Ronald Reagan taped to the dash. How the day after, we began work not with good morning, but with lo siento, the phrase with its sound of a bootstep sinking, then lifted from mud. the slick muck of it wetting our tongues as we apologize ourselves back to making our living. Again and again I write to you, regretting my tongue. God, it's just such a great passage. And honestly, this book, I feel like I could open it up and turn to any page and find a passage that is nearly as beautiful as that. It's a fiercely intelligent, smart novel. It's beautifully told. And yeah, I just absolutely loved reading it. The second to last book I have to talk about, I don't actually own because I read a library copy of it, and I do want to get my own copy of it soon. And that is Orbital by Samantha Harvey. This won the Booker Prize this year, and it was totally deserving, in my opinion. I tried to read some of the other books that were longlisted for the Booker Prize, and this was definitely the standout for me. It is about 6 astronauts aboard the International Space Station as they make 16 orbits around planet Earth in one 24-hour period. And this is a book that is kind of a book about ideas. It's not super plot focused. I would hesitate to even say that it's super character focused. Each of these characters is reflecting on the idea of perspective, the idea of looking at the world, this beautiful world, from a perspective that almost no other human beings alive or who have ever lived will ever truly be able to experience. It is about the beauty of the world. It is about the fierce intelligence of humanity that would allow for the kind of technology to be able to go into space, and yet also about how that same technology is turned into horrors that human beings unleash on each other. It is about both the beauty and brutality of the world and the fact that these things must coexist and we have to somehow reconcile it in our minds. This book is absolutely stunningly written. There are so many passages in this book about just the world, the descriptions of the blue ocean, the clouds, that make you really appreciate just what a gem of a planet we all get to live on. There's also a lot of beautiful descriptions in this book about what each of these characters is going through. The character that most resonated with me was a woman who was dealing with the fact that her mother had died while she was aboard the space station, and she can't attend the funeral. She has all this grief for this woman who she realizes she'll never see again, and whose body is just a speck on the earth. You know, she can't even see, sometimes her own country from outside her window. And she has to sit with that fact. And the way that grief is written about, trying to grieve for somebody while aboard a space station orbiting Earth, was truly beautiful and haunting. And yeah, I absolutely love this book. This is a book that in some ways made me fiercely proud to be from planet Earth, as it celebrated all of that beauty, and at the same time all of that horror. And yeah, I absolutely loved it. It's gorgeous, and it's a very short novel. You could probably read it in the course of a day, maybe 2 days, and just have this beautiful, powerful, emotional experience, and I highly recommend that you do. And then my favorite book of the year was The Thousand Autumns of Jacob de Zoet by David Mitchell. This is a historical fiction novel. It's set in the late 1700s on an artificial island called Dejima off of the coast of Nagasaki. And this island is where the Dutch East India Trading Company conducted all of its operations with Japan from. The back of the book says that this was Japan's only window to the West. And you start off the book following Jacob de Zoet. He's a young Dutch clerk who is trying to make his fortune on Dejima in order to win the hand of his wealthy fiancée back home. His plans are uprooted when he has a chance meeting with a woman named Orito Abigawa. She's one of the few Japanese women who is allowed onto Dejima, and she's only allowed onto Dejima so that she can study midwifery with one of the Dutch doctors. he immediately is smitten with her and her beauty, and he desperately wants to see her again, and he seems to stop at nothing in order to make that happen, and throws all caution to the wind in order to pursue Orito Abigawa, with devastating consequences. Another aspect of this book that you're following is the fact that Jacob de Zoet is trying to root out corruption on Dejima. Corruption is basically the currency of Dejima. There's all sorts of people who are stealing from the company, conducting secret trades, etc. And there's a whole network of treachery that he is trying to root out. That is his job as a clerk. And so this book has all of those political machinations going on while he's pursuing this forbidden romance with Orito Abigawa. But then the plot really kind of unfolds in a way that's very unexpected, and I don't want to spoil. This plot is wild. The book's narrative is big. I think the thing that has stuck with me about this book more than anything was I don't think that since I read Bring Up the Bodies by Hilary Mantel have I read a book where I was both so impressed with the quality of the writing and the prose and the dialogue, matched with just how freaking fun it was to read. This book's plot is thrilling. There are kidnappings and escapes, revenge, war. It is a book that is just absolutely capacious and generous in what it offers as a narrative. While at the same time, it just reads so beautifully. And the dialogue is just absolutely crackling in this book. I flew through this. I could not stop reading it. The second I got done reading it, all I wanted to do was flip back to the beginning and re-experience it all over again. I love the fact that as you're reading it, it shifts perspectives from, you start off just with Jacob's perspective, but then you shift and you start getting perspectives from the Japanese characters. And when it does, it feels like a lens shifting, and you see the world in this that had been previously described in this completely new light, and you understand all the different things that you couldn't have understood from Jacob's perspective. And the way that is pulled off is so interesting and fun, and frankly thrilling. Yeah, I loved this book. It is an absolute thrill ride. It is wild. It is beautiful, and yeah, it made me feel like I wanted every single reading experience I have to feel this good. So yeah, I love this. And yeah, those were my favorite books of 2024. I would love to hear from you guys about what your favorite books were in 2024. And what you're planning on reading in 2025. I'm already trying to look at the most anticipated lists coming out. I always get excited when publications start publishing their most anticipated lists. People like LitHub, The Millions, all that. I start writing out lists of books I'm most excited for. So yeah, I would love to hear about any 2025 releases you think I should have on my radar. So yeah, that's the video from me. Hopefully it wasn't too rambly. And I will see you guys in the next one, though I don't know when that will be. All right, thank you guys for watching. Have a good one. Bye.